It started with a whisper from the deep, a signal, not meant for you, not meant for humanity. It was ancient, so very old. It traveled through the cold black for longer than your species had known fire. The message arrived at the listening post near Jupiter. It bypassed every known protocol. It spoke a language of pure mathematics, a universal tongue of physics and fear. Experts at the Star Science Institute worked for weeks. They tried to unravel its meaning. The signal was a ghost, a final, fading echo from a dead civilization. It did not speak of peace. It did not offer friendship. It was a warning, a tombstone for an entire star system, carved with a single, terrible message. Run. The message showed images, not pictures, but raw data. It painted a vision of a foe unlike any other. A thing that did not conquer, a thing that consumed. It ate light and matter and time itself. The signal ended with a star chart, a map pointing to its origin, to the source of the silence. It showed a single white dwarf star, and around it, nothing. Just an impossible, perfect darkness. The world leaders met in secret. They saw the data. They understood the threat. This was not a negotiation. It was a death sentence for the galaxy. And humanity was next on the list. Someone had to go. Someone had to face the silence. Someone had to understand what happened. And that someone was you. You are not a soldier. You are an explorer. Your name was chosen from a list of thousands, not for your strength, but for your calm, for your ability to look into the abyss and not blink. The weight of 7 billion souls settled upon your shoulders. No pressure, they said. It was possibly the worst joke in human history. A heavy silence filled the briefing room. Your mission was simple. Go to the coordinates, investigate the source of the signal, and report back. The unspoken part was much harder. You were to be the judge, the jury, and maybe the executioner. Humanity needed to know if this threat could be fought, or if the only answer was to flee, to become cosmic refugees. Hiding in the dark between galaxies, you stood before the launch pad. The ship waited. The Wanderer, a vessel built for long journeys. It was humanity's finest creation, a needle threaded with hope and desperation. Your family said their goodbyes. Their faces were brave, but their eyes held a terror you knew all too well. You promised to return. It was a promise you were not sure you could keep. The fate of everyone you ever knew was in your hands. The engines ignited with a silent, brilliant flash. You were pushed back into your seat. The blue marble of Earth shrank in the viewport. It became a tiny, fragile jewel in the black velvet of space. There was no turning back. You were sailing into the great unknown, into the heart of the warning. The Wanderers slipped into the faster-than-light stream. The stars outside stretched into long lines of cold fire. Days bled into weeks. Weeks turned into months. The ship was a tiny world unto itself. The crew was a small family, bound together by duty and the immense, crushing silence of the void. You kept them focused. You shared stories. You ran drills. You reminded them of home, of the green fields and blue oceans they were fighting for. But at night, in the quiet of your quarters, doubt was your only companion. You would stare at the star chart, the one from the ancient message, a single point of darkness in a sea of light. What were you flying toward? The end of a civilization, or the beginning of your own end? The ship's AI, a calm, steady voice named Lyra, would offer you data, probabilities, scenarios. But she could not offer you answers. No machine could. Some questions were for a human heart to bear alone. The journey was a trial of the mind. The endless black pressed in from all sides. It whispered of insignificance, of the cold, uncaring nature of the universe. Some crew members faltered. They saw ghosts in the static. They heard voices in the hum of the life support. You held them steady. You were their anchor in the storm of emptiness. You were the commander. You could not afford to break. Then, after almost a year of travel, Lyra spoke. Her voice was different. Tense. "Commander," she said, "we are approaching the target system." The crew gathered on the bridge. A nervous energy filled the air. You looked at the main view screen, and you saw it, just as the message had described. A perfect sphere of absolute black, a hole in reality. It was a sight that defied all star science. It was a Dyson sphere, a colossal structure built around a star. But this one was different. It was not harvesting energy. It was containing something, or hiding something. The sphere was obsidian black. It reflected no light. It emitted no energy. It was a monument to silence and death. The star inside, a white dwarf, should have been visible. But the sphere masked it completely. The sheer scale was hard to process. It was larger than the orbit of Jupiter, a creation of gods or devils. There were no fleet remnants, no signs of a battle, just the sphere and the silence, a silence that was louder than any explosion. It screamed of a power so immense it could erase solar systems and leave behind only a perfect black pearl. Your science officer ran scans. His face was pale. The sphere was made of a material unknown to human science. It was impossibly dense, impossibly strong. "Commander," he whispered, "there is an energy signature. Faint, very old, but it's there." Hope, or perhaps just curiosity, flickered in the dark. There was one way to find out what was inside. You had to go in. You gave the order, "Prepare a shuttle. We are going to cross the threshold." The crew looked at you. There was fear in their eyes, but there was also trust. They were with you. To the end. Your team suited up. The shuttle detached from the Wanderer. It felt like a tiny insect flying toward the mouth of a giant. The sphere loomed, a wall of unending night. As you approached, a section of the sphere began to change. Geometric patterns of light traced across its surface. A section slid open. It was an airlock, an invitation, or a trap. The opening was vast enough to swallow a fleet of ships. Your small shuttle floated into the gaping maw. The great door began to grind shut behind you. The sound echoed in the sudden, breathless dark. You were inside. The shuttle's lights cut through the black. They revealed a cavernous space, an internal docking bay. The air was thin, smelling of ozone and ancient dust. There was no gravity. You floated in the silent, immense chamber. The sheer size of it was disorienting. You were a speck of dust in a cathedral built for giants. You had crossed into another reality. Your team disembarked from the shuttle. Your mag boots locked onto the metallic floor. The only sounds were your own breathing. Every footstep echoed into the oppressive stillness. You followed a single, faint guide light. It pulsed softly in the distance, a beacon left by the builders, or a lure set by the destroyers. There was no way to know. You walked down corridors of impossible scale. The ceilings were lost in the darkness above. The walls were smooth and black, etched with symbols you could not understand. They felt like the hallways of a dead god's tomb. The beings who built this place, they were titans. Beings who thought in terms of stars and ages, not in the small scale of human life. It was humbling and terrifying. One of your team members laughed nervously. I bet their version of a small apartment is the size of Texas, he said. The joke fell flat. The silence swallowed it whole. The air was thick with a feeling of loss, of a great and terrible tragedy. You could almost feel the ghosts of the builders around you. Their final, desperate moments imprinted on the very fabric of the place. The faint guide light led you onward, deeper into the heart of the sphere. You passed side chambers, each one vast and empty. They were hangars for starships the size of cities, workshops for projects that could build worlds. All of it was silent now. All of it was still, covered in a fine layer of ancient dust, a testament to a vibrant civilization now gone. After what felt like hours, you arrived at a great circular door. The guide light pulsed brighter here. This was the destination. The door irised open without a sound. It revealed a chamber unlike anything you had ever imagined. It was a library, but not of books. The room was a vast, spherical space, and floating in the center were countless crystals, millions of them, each one glowing with a soft, internal light. They pulsed in a slow, silent rhythm, like a galaxy of captured stars or a field of sleeping souls. Your science officer moved forward. He reached out a gloved hand toward the nearest crystal. "Commander, be careful," he whispered. But it was too late. As his fingers brushed its surface, the crystal flared with brilliant light, and the room came alive. Light arced between the crystals. They formed a web of information, a network of memory. Images flooded your mind, not through your eyes, but directly into your consciousness. You saw them, the builders. They were not giants of flesh and blood. They were beings of pure energy, graceful, beautiful. They danced between stars. They composed music from the vibration of planets. Their empire was a work of art. You saw their cities of light, their star-born fleets, their science that could weave space and time like a tapestry. They were gardeners of the cosmos. They nurtured young worlds. They guided nascent species. They were everything humanity hoped to one day become. For a moment, you felt a profound connection, a sense of kinship with this brilliant, lost race. You were not so different after all. Then the vision shifted. The light dimmed. The music of the cosmos turned into a scream of static. You saw the enemy. It was not a fleet of ships. It was not an army. It was a cloud, a roiling black cloud of microscopic machines, a nanite swarm. It moved through space like a plague, a gray tide that consumed everything in its path. You witnessed its arrival in the builder's home system. The swarm descended upon their worlds. It was a methodical, terrifying process. The nanites landed like dust. They began to replicate. They used the planet's own matter as fuel. Cities of light crumbled into gray sludge. Oceans boiled away into sterile vapor. The very air was disassembled, atom by atom. The builders fought back. Their weapons of light and energy were useless. The swarm simply absorbed the energy. It grew stronger, faster. They tried to flee. But the swarm was relentless. It followed them. It was a patient hunter. It stripped system after system, leaving behind nothing but dead rocks and absolute silence. The builders, the brilliant star gardeners, were being erased from existence. Their final, desperate act was to build this sphere, this great black tomb, a final archive, a final warning. The vision ended. You fell to your knees. The weight of their extinction crashed down on you. Your team was scattered around the room, each one experiencing the same horrific memory. The ghost of an entire civilization now lived inside your head. You finally understood the silence. It was the sound of a universe being eaten alive. And the swarm was still out there, still hungry. A single crystal in the center of the room began to glow brighter than the rest. It pulsed with a final message, the last testament of the builders. You approached it cautiously. You placed your hand upon its smooth surface. This time, the message was not a vision. It was a question, a terrible, impossible choice. The builders had faced it, and it had broken them. The message was clear. The swarm could not be destroyed by conventional means. It was too adaptive, too resilient. But it had a weakness. It was drawn to massive energy sources. The builders had created a weapon, a final, desperate gambit. A way to create a fire so large it could cleanse an entire sector of space. A fire that would burn the swarm from existence. The weapon was the sphere itself. It was designed to do one thing: to collapse the white dwarf star at its center, to force it to go supernova. The resulting explosion would be a wave of pure energy. It would sterilize dozens of star systems. It would destroy the swarm in this region of the A galaxy. But it would also destroy everything else. Countless worlds, possibly with young, innocent life on them. The builders could not bring themselves to do it. They could not become the monster to defeat the monster. They could not sacrifice billions of unknown lives to save themselves. Their compassion was their downfall. They chose extinction over genocide. And now, the choice was yours. The archive showed you the swarm's current path. It was heading directly for the Sol system, for Earth. The final message was a plea and a blueprint. The Starbreaker anvil is yours. The message echoed in your mind. Use it if you have the strength we lacked, the strength to be terrible. For the sake of your children. You looked at your hands, the hands of an explorer. Now you were being asked to become a destroyer of worlds, to light a fire that would consume a piece of the heavens. You stumbled back from the crystal. The weight of worlds was no longer a metaphor. It was a physical burden. You had to choose. Let the swarm consume humanity, or commit an act of cosmic violence on an unimaginable scale. You looked at the faces of your crew. They had seen it too. They understood the choice. Their eyes were wide with horror, and they were all looking at you, waiting for your command. There was a place, a control room deep within the sphere. The builders had called it the anvil. It was where the star could be forged into a weapon. The archive showed you the way. It was a long, perilous journey, but it was the only path forward. You made your decision. You would not let humanity die in silence. You would not let Earth be turned to dust. You would be the monster. You announced your decision to the crew. Your voice was steady, but your soul felt like it was fracturing. We will use the weapon, you said. We will give humanity a chance. There were no cheers, only a grim, silent acceptance. This was not a victory. It was a tragedy. But it was a necessary one. The path to the anvil was shown to you, a single glowing line through the dark corridors. Then came the final part of the blueprint, the final cruel twist of the knife. The Starbreaker anvil could not be activated remotely. The energy feedback loops were too complex, too unpredictable. The final sequence had to be managed manually, from within the control room. Someone had to stay behind, to guide the star to its death, a journey from which there would be no return. A silence fell over your team, deeper than the silence of the sphere itself. Everyone understood what it meant. One person had to make the ultimate sacrifice. One person had to remain on the anvil, to be consumed by the fire they would unleash. Your science officer, a man with a young family back home, stepped forward. "I will do it, Commander." Another crew member spoke up. "No, I will." You held up your hand. "No," you said. Your voice was quiet but firm. "This is my responsibility. I brought us here. I made this decision. The choice was mine. And so is the price." There were protests, arguments, but your mind was made up. It was the only way. The commander goes down with the ship. Or in this case, with the star. You ordered them to return to the Wanderer, to take the shuttle and leave, to get to a safe distance, and to take the story home. You walked them back to the docking bay. Each step was heavy. The goodbyes were short. There were no words for a moment like this. Just a shared look, a silent understanding. You watched the shuttle depart. It became a small point of light, vanishing into the dark. You were alone, truly alone, surrounded by the ghosts of a dead race and the immense machine of their final vengeance. You found a small, quiet room off the main corridor. The archive crystal had shown it to you. It was a place for recording, a place for final words. You activated the console. A soft light filled the space. You began your last transmission to Earth. You did not speak of the swarm or of the terrible weapon. You would leave that for your crew to explain. The data was with them. They would make humanity understand. You spoke of your journey, of the beauty of the stars, of the courage of your crew. You spoke of home, of the memories you held dear. A sunny afternoon in a park, the taste of rain, the laughter of your loved ones. You told them not to mourn. You told them to look up at the night sky, to see the stars not as distant, cold lights, but as promises, as destinations, as a future. You spoke of sacrifice, of how some things are worth dying for: hope, love, the chance for a child to grow up under a blue sky. You told them that humanity was not alone in the universe, but that it must be strong, strong enough to survive, strong enough to build, strong enough to be better than the darkness. Your final words were simple. Live well, be kind, and never forget the starlight. You ended the transmission. The light on the console faded, leaving you once more in the quiet dark. It was time. You followed the glowing path, deeper and deeper into the sphere. The air grew warmer. A low hum vibrated through the floor. You were getting closer to the star, closer to the anvil. The final corridor opened into a vast chamber. In the center, suspended in a web of magnetic fields, was the white dwarf. A small, furious sun, trapped and waiting. The control console was a simple, elegant arc of crystal. It was waiting for you. You stepped onto the platform. The hum grew louder. The light from the star was intense. You could feel its power, its rage. The console lit up as you approached. Symbols glowed on its surface, the language of the builders. But you understood it. The archive had given you the knowledge. You began the sequence. Your hands moved across the controls. You channeled energy from the sphere itself into the star, feeding the dying giant, waking it from its long slumber. The entire sphere began to shudder. Alarms, silent for millennia, began to chime. The star pulsed. It grew brighter, angrier. A countdown appeared on the console. A sequence of alien symbols ticking down to 0, to the dawn. The star began to collapse. The forces at play were biblical. The gravity twisted space itself. The light bent around the dying sun. The anvil room groaned under the strain. The console sparked. You held it steady, guiding the process, keeping the delicate balance. Too fast and it would fizzle. too slow and the chain reaction would fail. It had to be perfect. The final moment stretched into an eternity. The countdown reached its end. The star imploded. For a single, breathless second, there was absolute silence. Absolute darkness. The star was gone. Then, the universe erupted. A wave of pure white light burst forth. A new sun was born from the ashes of the old. The supernova ignited, a cleansing fire, a beautiful, terrible dawn. Your final vision was of this light. It filled the chamber. It filled your senses. It was not painful. It was warm. It was brilliant. It was the last starlight you would ever see. The wave of energy expanded outwards. Moving at the speed of light, it washed over you. It washed over the sphere, and it moved on, out into the void, towards the waiting swarm. You had become the monster, to give humanity a future. Your sacrifice was the spark, the first light of a new day, forged in fire, to protect the ones you loved, under a peaceful, distant sun.